This is Google Meet, and so what we're talking about are some of the really cool features of things that Google has done to add to some of the new features. I've already talked to you guys a little bit about the grid view, the Google Grid View. That's even upped its game a little bit and got some new things in there, and we're going to talk a little bit about those. With your grid view, one of the things that's really awesome with the grid view, and this is still, I think, an essential component for the Google Meets. And a couple of things that we can do with it is by default, you're including yourself in the grid, which if you want to see yourself as part of the grid, you can, or you can take yourself out of the grid. But one of the things that this has that's really kind of a neat thing is what's known as enable screen capture mode. And this is using that feature of Google Grid View, Google Meet Grid View, and that's another extension that you guys can have installed. And what the enable screen capture does is it locks your screen into the right format so that if you're going to use something like Screencastify, which we have, or if you wanted to go with another one like Screencast-O-Matic, that your screen is set up and optimized for recording of screens if you wanted to do that. The other thing that you can have is by default, you can turn your grid view on. And then what Highlight Speakers does is when somebody else would be talking as a part of the meeting, a yellow border would come around their screen so that you could see what it was that they're doing with their so you know who's speaking if you wanted to highlight the speakers. Google, as of Wednesday of last week, it put some new features in that really kind of bring their meeting more in line with Zoom. Zoom is their biggest competitor of the things that they've got. And so a couple of things that you can now do is you can turn your captions on. Captions is great if you're trying to work with students that are dealing with hearing issues or anything like that. A little bit of a lag when you've got your captions turned on or off. But then you also have some options that you can do that Google has put in where you can change the layout of your Google Meet. And with this layout, you can have what I like with if you're using the Google one would be the sidebar. You have your participants along the sidebar. Let me present here so that you guys can kind of see what I'm looking at with my screen. So when you've got your sidebar on here, you can change up how you want your layout to look with Google. Now, this is different from the grid view. The grid view extension, if you still have that, has the ability to include in that screen capture mode, which optimizes your screen to do any kind of capturing of screen content. So you really, if you're going to use both of these or kind of playing around with them, you could have one or both of those meetings in there. Along with kind of the native or inherent features, when you change your layout, Google also they have their spotlight layout, which would be whoever's the one that is talking would be a part of the spotlight. So it would highlight that person. Or Google has their own sidebar version, which what that changes to would give you the view of, let me turn that off. You have to turn off the grid view extension. Then you can see the sidebar. You have your participants along the side. Whoever would be talking or speaking would be highlighted with where we're at with everything. The other thing that you can do with Google Meetings now as presenters is, as if you are the one that set up the meeting, you can now set up to where people have to ask to join. This kind of is a response to the Zoom bombing or the Google bombing that some of you may have heard about, where you can get people come in. So as the creator of the meeting, you can mute speakers. You can also set up and choose to allow or deny permissions for people to come in. Part of this, another extension that's really helpful or good that you guys might want to get into is what's known as the Meet Attendance. Hopefully, if you went out and got this, you could see what the Google Meet Attendance is. It looks like a little apple with a check mark in it. When you're not in a meeting, it's grayed out. If you want to see what it does, what we do is you have to click on the People tab. When you click on the people tab, what will happen is it opens up all of the people that are in the meeting. And so then this is, as the meeting organizer presenter, there are the things that you can do. I can mute people. I could remove people from the meeting if I want to. So these are new features that Google has recently put in to give meeting organizers more control. But what you notice with this meet attendance, it's filled in red now as an apple because we're in a Google meeting, and you have this second, it's like a checkbox here that tells you where the attendance is. And so if I click on this, what it does is it actually creates a Google Sheet, and it will give me a Google Sheet of our meeting attendance. And so I can create, so all of the meetings that I've been a part of or playing around and looking at this stuff, it'll give me my meets throughout the day, and I can have these different columns for them. Or what you can do is go back, and in this people tab, oh, I did it again, you can create a new sheet. So under this people tab here, what I could do is create a new sheet, and this would give me a new Google Sheet to go to my people tab. So when I go in here, this is where my meeting attendance is, and it gives it a date and time stamp for it so that you've got it, but you notice that there's nothing in here. What we need to do to get attendance is you have to go away from the people tab and then go back to the people tab. And that's how it does your attendance. So every time that you open up, I guess, a limitation of this is you have to go into the people tab and away from the people tab to get your attendance. This will tell you where people are at with this. Now, what you can do is I can turn this on and off. So if I turn it off, I'm not getting or collecting any attendance. Maybe you're doing something where people are going to come in and out or have different things, but with the attendance on, again, I can go back and I can look at, here's my meeting attendance. This is the sheet that I just created. So it gives me what our meeting attendance is. So this would give us everybody that's in our meeting attendance for it, and we can do that. Another option that you can do from the meeting attendance is you can add an existing sheet into your creating a new sheet or add an existing sheet into it. And so those are some of the features with the meeting that you can get through the Google Meeting attendance. When you're in here and you've got your Google Meeting, some of the other options of things that you can do with Google Meeting is they've also made it so that it's much easier to get to Google Meetings. Couple of places now that you can get to or start Google Meetings. If you notice, as of last week, on the left-hand side of your email, you now have a start a meeting that you can go and see a meeting if you wanted to start a Google Meeting from here. So you can start Google Meetings directly from your Google Mail. And then the last place that you can, well, not last place, but another place that you can go and do some Google Meetings if you would like to is through Google Classroom. And this is another feature that Google has put in here. So we'll just go into, so this is like my fundamentals class. So what you can do here is in this Google Fundamentals class, if you go to your settings, by default, it is now turned off. But what you can do is generate a Google Meeting link, and this will create a Google Meet for this particular classroom, and you can make it visible to students. What this will do is then students that are in this class would have a Google Meet that has been set up and created just for them as a part of this class. So this would be another tool. So your second period class could have their own Google Meeting link. Third period class could have a Google Meeting link, fourth period, so on and so forth. I know a lot of us are using the virtual office hours where we're just doing the one for all of them, but maybe if you had something special or unique, or you wanted to do something for each specific class, you could set up Google Meetings just by that class. And so then that would be a Google Meet feature that students would have access to. So that's an important thing. So if you add the Google Meet to the classroom, students would have access to be able to get into and get to that Google Meet. Lastly, what's kind of a neat feature with the Google Meet, all of your Google Meets for the day that you scheduled, if you want to know where you're at, if you use, and you can either use your Google Calendar if you have set them up and you've got them as calendar events, or the Meet, the Google Meet itself, which will give you the all of the meets of the things that you can do with it for those trainings that you've got right there. So those are some really kind of a cool things that you can do with this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and open it up. If you guys have any questions or if there's anything that you guys had or wanted with Google Meets. There's a lot.
How do I get that same code on 2 different classrooms for Google Meet?
So you can't, when you do the Google Meet for a classroom, it does its own unique one. So if you do it through the classroom and you set up a classroom meet, that one is a unique just to that classroom. So you cannot, you can copy the Google Meet codes over for other meetings, but not if you have it set up at the top in your banner of your classroom.
Okay.
Well. And Carol, answer your question. I am recording these so that we'll put them out. So if you guys miss these or get others that want to see these, we'll have recordings of these going throughout so that you guys can get the meets. Your limitations for meets, 250 people. So the most, I don't know that we'd ever get one that we'd have more of, but the most we could have would be 250 people into a meet if we wanted to do that. Other questions or comments or help or tips that you guys are looking for?
I have a question regarding the ending of a meeting. Like right now I have my Google Meet set up for my health students from 8:30 to 9. And I'm on every day, and then kids join. I shouldn't say kids. The same kids join me every morning and we chit chat. But if I hang up, they can still stay and talk to each other.
Yeah, they can. You can with the Google Meet. So one of the things that you can do with Google Meet, and this is, it's a little harder to do, but if you set up, if that's something you're worried about, if you go through the actual Meet channel. So I'm going to present again. I'll show you guys a way that you could get around this one. So let me present again and show you guys how you could do this one. All right. So if you go to, now this is, you cannot create a Google Meet through Calendar or through the Google Classroom. You have to go through the Google Meet itself. So this is through the app bar, the app launcher, and you're going to join or create a meeting. What you're going to do here is you're going to create a nickname for your meeting. And so this is how you could go about doing this. If you wanted to scrap your existing meetings and create one, and we could call this, I'd call this Tech Virtual Office Hours. Right. And so then if I go in here and I hit continue, so this is going to create my meeting. What this does with this Tech Virtual Office Hours is this makes it so that when you create this meeting, I'm the meeting owner, so I have to allow everybody to access to join. So if they want to join, what would happen is people that wanted to join this meeting would have to have the link shared with them. And then they would ask to join the meeting. So they can't just join the meeting like how you guys were in waiting. There were a couple of you that were in waiting before I got here. That's setting up through either through a calendar invite. It's just an open meeting as part of the calendar, or sharing the link with you guys. With this one, if you set up a meet this way, students would ask to join. And when I leave the meeting as the meeting organizer, that meeting is then dead. So that meeting, they can't get back into that meeting. And so that would be how you would go about doing that one if you wanted to set up your meets through here. Because what it does is you have to create a nickname for it. And the only way you can create the nicknames for it, it's like their security feature they do, is using the Google Meet feature, not Calendar or using your Gmail to create your meetings. You have to actually create a nickname for it.
The reason I asked that is because I left my advisory Google Meet, and then somebody had told me that if you leave it, even though you organized it and you invited kids, if you left it before they all hung up, then they can sit there and chit chat. And I don't know what the district's expectations are, but if there's a concern that we're allowing kids an avenue to discuss things through district service. And so, like talking to them and their district, they don't want the kids on a Google Meet after the teacher has left. And so they've scheduled theirs through Google Classroom. and then they say goodbye to the kids and they wait for all the kids to click off, and then the teacher leaves, and then that Google Meet is done. And then
Yeah.
kids can't come back. Like right now, I think my advisory kids could go, you know, like at 8:30, I'm sure the kids that come on my Google meeting for classroom come on and just hang out. And then they go, oh, Hanson's finally here. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? So is there a concern from our district that we need to have a little more control over that and not allow?
I'm not aware of anything. I haven't heard of anything that they've got with it. You know, obviously students aren't allowed to create meetings, so they're not allowed to create them.
They can use ours.
I know I haven't heard of any. You know, I suppose they could do anything. I mean, it's not to say that they couldn't. There's other chat apps or things that they can install or do that. So if they wanted to meet, they could meet. In our acceptable use policy, it does say that it's supposed to be used for educational purposes and things like that. So if they are just chit-chatting in it, it's not technically what they should be doing with it. So the way that we could get around it is if you do that, if you set up the meet like I just showed you there with giving it the nickname, then that kills the meeting when they're done with it. And so then what the other thing the teachers are doing with that classroom is they do the meet like we put it into the classroom, and then what they're doing is it's that same meeting, but they're making it visible to students. They're toggling that setting in the Google Classroom off and on so the students can see it or not see it. Now, the problem with that is if you do it through that way, if you get a savvy student, when the meeting is visible to them, they can copy and paste the link, because that's all it is a link. And then they could go back and use that link at another time. So even if, Carol, you make the meeting link invisible again, you hide the link. If somebody really wanted it, they copy that link and they go do that. By doing the Google Meet, setting it up through actual Meet, not calendar or anything else, when you kill that meeting as the owner of it, nobody else can get back into it unless you're there. So that gives you really the ultimate control over a Google Meet, so that even if they copied that link, they have to ask to join. And some people like that if you have 30, 40, 50 kids, they all have to ask to join, and you have to click allow to join, allow to join, allow to join, allow to join. If you don't want to do that, then it would be more of like the way that I've set these up, where everybody just comes in and goes as they want to. So right now, say, you know, Robin just joined us. I would get Robin wants to join the meeting, right? So then I'd have to let her in late, or you keep doing that throughout our Google meeting if that's something that we wanted to do. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You can have ultimate control over who comes in, and then when you leave, that meeting is dead, or leave it open and have more fluidity and where the flexibility where they're coming and going, or as kids are coming in and out. I leave mine. I periodically go in and check. I've got a couple kids just having chats, and I've talked to them about it, but I kind of leave mine up in the background. But I don't know that we've really, as a district, addressed it as far as if there's an issue or anything like that, as to where it is. But I mean, you could completely control it if you set them up through Meet. So, other questions? Anything else I can help you guys with the Google Meet and the attendance? And no, and it was so we've got some of these are a little, you know, longer or shorter than others, but really this one. So then once this meeting is recorded, would be in a web video format. You can then take those when I get done. If I stop recording this, so we're gonna save this. So by default, all of the recordings are saved into your Google